So Calvin's mentor was Liz Scudlow, and she sent me a write-up to read in her stead. So in the words of Liz Scudlow, I'm going to be honest. When I was asked to mentor Calvin, I, a writer with 10 years of produced television credits to my name, was intimidated. Because the very first thing Calvin told me is that he had completed writing numerous feature scripts and shot a few of them before even applying to grad school. To be clear, that's more feature scripts than I've finished in my entire career. In fact, I don't know if I've ever met someone more prolific. It was obvious to me from early on that sitting down to write is as essential to Calvin as eating, sleeping, or breathing. Over the next year, I would only grow more impressed by his marvelous brain as he told me stories of working 12-hour days at grueling jobs where he barely noticed the work because he was busy building entire worlds in his head. Or when I gave him notes and he'd return with an entirely new 120-page draft, the kind of script that might take experienced professionals months to turn out, but poured from Calvin in a handful of weeks. In Hollywood, it can be easy to forget that most of us got into this field to be artists. But Calvin reminded me every day what it means to live and breathe the art of storytelling and to infuse passion into everything we do. It was an honor to mentor him, and I am so proud of the work he did on both Consumption and Kill Everyone. Without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce you to one of the most creative, unique voices I've had the pleasure of working with, Calvin Shepard.
Okay, that wasn't fair. I had my heart broken by 4 words. It took her 4 words to do what I try to do in 90 pages. I was speaking with someone who would absolutely be impossible for me to have a relationship with, but to be honest, she kind of felt like home. We were reminiscing the shoulder brushes over time in the alternate universes where things had gone a different way. She said 4 words. We can only imagine. To her, it was a simple turn of phrase, but to me, it was a way of life. See, when I was a kid, and even now, I wanted to be everything I saw on a movie screen. FBI agent, lawyer, doctor. I felt cool when my dad would call me a cowboy. I wanted to be a spy, pilot, bank robber, a legendary gunslinger like Doc Holliday, Batman. I wanted to be in love. That was until I learned I can only imagine. That's what I do, that's my skill, that's my life. I imagine. At first, it felt like a cure. Suddenly, with characters in abundance, I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't stuck. I could go anywhere, be anyone. Lined paper covered everything in my room like dirty laundry and trash. My mother sorted through my stories. She believed I'd be a country music songwriter. But her favorite song was, Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. My dad always told me I come from cowboys. He raised me that way. And one look at me, you'd think Mama succeeded. I ain't no cowboy. But my lonely heart cries to the moon through sad cowboy songs disguised as movies, and I've become that outsider riding fences begging the world to just be a little better to itself. And I'd rather give you a song than diamonds or gold. What is a normal happy life? I can only imagine. As writers, we don't get to move on. We have to lock in on a feeling and exploit it. Dig in deeper, get to the real bone of it. And we do that and move on to another. Lead on the page. Good job. Do it again. Writing often feels like a curse. Our stories like ghosts always reminding us of the homes we no longer know. Peace, we can only imagine. You'd think I hate this, but I love it. Oh, I hate it too, but I love it. Those little moments of realization like, oh, this hurt me, but it's like this, so I can use it here. Those words that, I love those words that ring in your ear that hurt so fucking bad, they make great dialogue. I love finally finishing a story and think, I can make this. And I do. I make every movie I can make. I love spending my life making movies. I love running up and down this state over and over to pull this shit off. I love sleeping in my car. I love doing stunts in a scarecrow costume, getting beat with sticks in 100-degree heat before being thrown to the ground. I love working on my thesis presentation till 3 in the morning last night. I love I guess I love acting now. I love running around set barefoot to keep from making noise until I step on a nail, throw some gaff tape on that bitch and go again. I love the stress, the heat from the lights, and the fucking heartbreak. I love making movies. That's cowboy shit. Sorry, Mama. That's all I can imagine. Consumption was born from my love of movies. I forgot about this. Both sides of my family loved the 1993 film Tombstone. They showed it to me so many times, always reminding me that the best character died and was buried only an hour away from where I grew up. I challenge anyone to show me a cooler performance than Val Kilmer in Tombstone as the deadly, dying gambler Doc Holliday. Yes, even you, James, I'm pretty serious about this. As I got older, I began to research the real Doc Holliday, and I began to feel a real kinship with the character I was building in my head, separate from the legends or other movie portrayals, or even the real person. I was creating something between the lines. I've been trying to write scripts about Doc Holliday since I got laid off during the pandemic. My cohort read a completely different draft of this script that wasn't even the same story at one point. And I've started from scratch so many times, as I tend to do. Sorry, Kim. Through heartbreak and the help of my cohort, I realized, like Hollywood through so many adaptations before me, that I had completely ignored hate. So, consumption. A devious criminal mastermind and prostitute, Kate Elder, attempts to create a home for herself using the fame of her dying gambling gunslinger boyfriend in the midst of the chaotic Wild West. This is Bonnie and Clyde, but where Bonnie is a master manipulator, brutal criminal genius, and Clyde is the lost soul whose angry outbursts of violence only make his impending demise worse. I knew this love. I don't have to imagine it. I experienced it myself. Kate was my undying optimism for us, what our love could be. And Kate was also her non-monogamous lifestyle. Doc was her pessimism for anything good, and my forever pain, the feeling of being cursed. They are us and we are them. But this isn't a Western. Not the pinnacle of the great American frontier you're used to seeing. No, our story takes place in hell. Not literally, but my version of the Wild West is filled with degenerate sinners gambling, fucking, and killing their way through a cursed land. It's either scalding hot or bitterly cold, no in between. Everything is unforgiving. Kate Elder never really had a home. She's a Hungarian immigrant. Her family lived in Mexico, but were killed before she moved up to the States. She hit a farmer in the jaw with an axe, and then ran off to a monastery. Didn't fit her. At her heart, she was a lady of the night. Here she had independence. She didn't have to answer to anyone, no man or God, the occasional madam here or there, but she learned from all of them. She was not the fuck around type. By the time we meet her, she's already killed 2 men in her life and has one tied up in her room in the very first scene. The first time Kate meets Doc Holliday, she uses him. At first, he was just a tool to her ultimate plan. Kate was a scholar of the Old West. She read everything she could get her hands on, and mostly that was the papers. She saw the Old West as it was really ran. Fast guns and famous names, that's how you get through. Ultimately, she wanted to open a place of her own, so notorious no one would fuck with her. So she would be safe, a means to an end. She knew Doc Holliday from an article where he was pronounced dead, but he sat in front of her, dealing cards, waiting to get killed again. She asked him, I was hoping, since I helped you kill that guy downstairs and take his money, that you might help me kill this guy and take his money too. She was giddy. She didn't take to most people, but there was something about Doc. It kind of felt like home. Death followed Doc his whole life. He always felt cursed. The day he was born, he had a cleft palate. He should have died. He was a weak, skinny baby, but his mother fed him with an eyedropper for months. She wanted so much from him, but as her boy grew older, she taught him math and literature, classics on piano, different languages. She wanted her son to become a doctor. As a teenager, he had to watch her die slowly and alone, with the disease buried in her lungs. Doc followed his mother's dream, becoming a dentist, until that sickness grew into his lungs as well. He was coughing in the mouths of his customers, so that didn't work. For income, he turned to cards. Cards he understood from math his mother taught him, but the sickness caused him to drink and do drugs. His weak stature made him violent in defense of himself. Sorry, Mom. Doc was given months to live upon his diagnosis. It had been years by the time he met Kate. I struggled with how to tell you my version of this story. I keep diving into the love and trying to pitch you a story that happens in order, beat by beat. It doesn't work. This love between Kate and Doc, it was doomed from the beginning. Doc was never going to live. And though she's my main character, Kate was never going to change. Love is messy, illogical, people do shit that makes absolutely no sense to fuck with the other person. So do Kate and Doc. Through the beginning of the story, they are like absolutely feral for each other, but also hate each other at the same time. In the entire beginning, it feels impossible to track whether the motivation is beyond sex, money, or thrill. Kate was the mastermind behind their schemes. She recognized that Doc made the card players mad intentionally, and he makes them aggressive so they bet more. He's always playing mind games, and she used her profession to her advantage, learning things that men didn't want other men to know, and fed the information to Doc. Doc hated that she kept working, but she wasn't going to change for anyone. This was her work. And papers. You know what else is work? Doc said in the bathhouse one night. This is work. And guess what? I fucking love it. I act like I don't. And sometimes I do hate it, but I do. The weight of it, its texture, my control over it, and I like ruining lives. I like watching the light drain from their souls so they keep on living, knowing I'm taking something from them they can't get anywhere else, and they can't get back. They had to come to a compromise. By the midpoint, they'd buy a saloon in New Mexico. Kate ran business upstairs, and Doc handled the card tables. The place felt so stable. Kate operated the place like in the best way she had seen. She had made her girl's family, and though she didn't quit completely, she rarely worked. And everything was starting to go right when Doc started feeling that itch in his chest again. He had made a promise to try and have a life with her, but he felt the breath of his victims on the back of his neck, the sickness growing in his chest, and he remembered his days were numbered. So he turned back to chaos. Doc almost ruined everything. The violence, it was a means to an end for Kate, to get to this place where they were. They were for Doc too, but his end meant letting everyone take a shot first. He wanted to be put out of his misery. Kate's goal was always to create a home for herself, and Doc felt like a part of that home to her. Kate fought the demons inside him, but every time that skinny piece of shit started babbling how nothing mattered and nothing was worth it because he was about to die, she popped the motherfucker in the mouth. She was bigger than him, stronger and meaner, and he wouldn't listen. She tried to convince him, but his fate was set. He couldn't change it. He tried to die every way that he could. By the end, Kate visited Doc on his deathbed, just to say I told you so. You weren't going to die in a gunfight. He looked up at his feet and laughed just before he died. Doc's body was buried in a shallow grave during the winter to be moved in the warmer months, but they never found it. Kate laughed. Somehow that made sense. She returned to her business in New Mexico. She put her into a place that finally felt like home, like nothing was missing. So Kate wondered if Doc's ghost had found its way back into the walls, it made him way back into their would-be home. She hoped he did, but she could only imagine. So, real quick, I'd like to thank my mom for the hours of listening to the same songs with me until we understood every lyric. Thank my dad for letting me watch the movies my mom wouldn't let me watch. Thank you to at his house. And thank you to my mom, to Mrs. Kelly, who's the high school teacher that taught me as a high school student that no guts, no story, and I pretty much lived my life by that. Thank you to Western for all my wonderful instructors, Joy for bringing me here, showing me such care through my first year, Mita for always telling us exactly how it is, Kim for putting up with me through this thesis process, Liz for all the amazing work we did together. I couldn't have asked for a better mentor. Thank you to all the beautiful friends I make movies with, and last you, Lastly, thank you to my cohort for telling me to shut the fuck up when I'm being a whiny little bitch and reminding me to throw some gas tape on it and go again.
You are welcome.